Deep breath.
Okay, well, Dan, welcome to the show. It's awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having me here.
So, you are the spiritual tradie.
Yes.
How did you come to this place where you stopped being just a normal tradie and started being a spiritual tradie?
Mm-hmm. Um, so I guess about 6 years ago now, I was just an average tradie, um, working too hard, living a normal tradie lifestyle, beating my body up, drink a lot, smoke a pack a day of cigarettes, drink a liter of Red Bull a day, just a proper tradie lifestyle, meat pie and Coke for breakfast kind of deal.
Super nourishing.
Yeah. And so that was working well. And then I learned to meditate and
Hold on.
uh,
It was working well.
no, not really, but it was it was happening. Um, yeah. And so I guess I don't think I knew how bad I felt until retrospectively, right? And this is something that happens quite a lot as we leave a certain state of consciousness. We then see how bad it was and then retrospectively attach a label of depression to it. I wouldn't say I was depressed at the time, but then moving out of where I was, I'd look back and say, oh, I wouldn't want to be back there anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just started to have a connection to something inside that was um, different than anything I'd experienced before, and and what I call a connection to a sense of spirit or spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and that really came down to cultivating awareness of my body through meditation, and a lot of times meditation sort of is the mind and how we create a calm mind. But what I discovered through this practice was de-exciting and becoming very relaxed in the meditation, and then becoming aware of the subtler aspects of the body. And yeah, really having just crazy experiences that shook my worldview, my very rigid worldview of how things were supposed to be and what things are. Um, Very quickly, I didn't align with the way I was living anymore. So a lot of things changed very quickly after that.
Mm. And so, was there a point where, like, what made you wake up one day and decide I'm going to start meditating?
I guess as I don't know I think back in 2012 I was interested in like astral travel and kind of out of body experiences, and I got onto YouTube and I tried a meditation, and what ended up actually happening was I got really sick and I didn't get out of bed for 3 days. So then meditation sort of fell away from me after that, and then like 3 years later I I found One Giant Mind. My cousin created One Giant Mind, Johnny Pollard, and so he said, like, I'll teach you to meditate. We couldn't align up the dates, so I just started using the app. And the reason why I was doing it in that sense is because I write music, and specifically rap music, and I wanted to tap into a deeper sense of creativity. But what actually happened was that I realized how stressed I was. So what I thought I was meditating for, something completely different happened, I was
Mm.
looking for the place where all the ideas were. I was trying to get to I was like, if there's ideas and they come to us, surely we can go to that place where the ideas are and just harvest all the ideas. That was my thinking at the time. And what happened was a complete transformation of my body and mind. Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing. It's like I think everyone has a different kind of bait that pulls them into that inner
Mm-hmm.
work. And for you, it was like maybe I'll get this deep inspiration.
Yeah, I was having dreams of like hip hop songs, and I was dreaming like a Hilltop Hood song, but it was very clearly something that wasn't written yet, but it was so pronounced to me in my dream, and I was like, I've got to go. If I can have that experience in my dream, there's a place where it is, and I want to find out where it is. And so I thought meditation would be a way to access these deeper states of awareness. To this day, I still haven't found that song, so
Still looking.
still looking. Yeah.
Is that what brings you back every day, Dan? Like just
To
seeking?
meditate.
Yeah.
Um, what brings me back every day to meditate is that it just calms me out, and stabilizes me. I think uh, having lived half, my life, half my life. How do I know how long half my life is? But having lived, for 30 years without a meditation practice, and then see a real turning point was when I decided to do it twice a day for a long period of time, and I decided to do it for 5 years. And so it's a long period of time, but uh, when I did that, um, everything kind of shifted. A lot of um, so much kind of, how would I say, support came um, for in experiences in my life, and also inner transformation happened very quickly once I decided that's what I wanted to do. So that's what keeps bringing me back. That there's a constant unfolding happening, and I
Mm.
just want to keep fueling it and stay on board with that unfolding process.
It's like that quote, when we change our inner world, our outer world starts to change as well.
Exactly, and
So you
because I
you sat down to meditate on day one and were like,
Mhm.
okay, this is day one of the next 5 years.
uh it wasn't that specific. So it was like when I first started to meditate, it was on and off, and I would meditate here and there. I'd meditate a couple of times on the weekend, and then I go off it for a week, and then I come back to it. And then in 2014, like in about August, I started reading Russell Brand's. I think it was Revolution or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and he mentioned in the book that he practiced transcendental meditation, and it had an impact on him. And I was really frustrated because I was meditating, but I didn't think I was having the experience that everyone else claimed to have in meditation. And I was like, what do I have to do to break through this seemingly impenetrable wall to have these spiritual experiences that people talk about, these deeper connective experiences? And so I just decided that I'm going to be alive anyway for the next 5 years. So I might as well practice meditation every day and find out what they're talking about. And yeah, within 6 months, I started to have these experiences that I was reading about, and they started to correlate with, what was promised. And it just took that intention and that dedication to doing it, to find out, to break through those kind of um, those kind of barriers, or to have those experiences, I guess.
What was that experience like? If you can
Uh,
describe one of them.
um, the probably the biggest one, the first one was also there's also meat and alcohol involved. So my grandfather passed away, and I had to write a eulogy. So I had a couple of Canadian clubs and a big T-bone steak, and sat down and started writing. And I was probably writing for 3 hours, and just getting into the depths of my appreciation and gratitude for my grandfather. And then after that was finished, at about 10:30, I went and meditated, and had this experience of um, just pure love in my heart, and something that I can honestly say I've never felt it before. It's this like a wheel of love just churning over in my chest, and then it felt like I was exploding with love, and then my whole mind fell silent, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, I'm enlightened. And I wasn't enlightened, but um you know I was like, well, this is what they're talking about. Yeah, this is the thing. And then I just, I felt like I understood what was happening for the first time in my life. I
Yeah.
felt this connection to I felt like God was watching me in that moment.
Mm.
Just felt this complete divine calmness. I couldn't even think a thought. And I remember thinking that thought. I can't think a thought. There's no thoughts in here. Like, it's amazing. And so to go from someone who's completely atheist and spirituality's nonsense and religion's nonsense, to have this huge experience of my own body's ability to produce love chemistry, and to connect with something what I felt like was beyond normal, then I couldn't ignore that anymore, you know?
Mm,
Yeah.
that's
So
awesome. And
yeah,
it's like that feeling of love when you're in that place, and we all have the ability to create that within ourselves. And that's, I think that's what people mean when they say the love that you can give love to yourself. Like it's going there to that place. And anxiety can't exist in that realm. And we can take ourselves there. Isn't that exciting?
it is so exciting. Yeah. And it was so contrary to the way I'd been living, of like that happiness comes from inside, from outside in.
Mm.
And just to connect to myself on that deep level and feel that love with no external trigger was just a complete, like, wow, this is, it's not outside of me, it's within me, and it is actually what I am, just pure love. And yeah, it was amazing. So
Yeah. And it didn't matter in that moment what you'd achieved, who you were, who said they loved you or who said they hated you. Like it's just
no,
this whole other experience on its own that's just you.
it didn't discriminate. And the only thing that I feel like the difference is that I was just dedicated to keep doing it until I found out what that was all about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's
Mm,
beautiful. Um,
yeah.
I find that if there look Dan, if there was one thing that you wish more people knew when it comes to any of this stuff, what would it be?
Um, well, there's so many. um, I think that is one of them, that we are the source of our own love. Oh, there's so much. That's a hard question. How do you put the whole universe into one answer, right? Um,
Everyone just understand the whole universe, please.
yeah, basically, and that's what that's what it kind of comes down to, is that before my experiences and before meditation, my worldview was so small and so incomplete and so non non helpful. It wasn't beneficial to me. My worldview was, life's hard. You got to work hard, otherwise you're worthless. You if you're not born in Australia, you don't belong. You don't belong here. All these kind of ridiculous, narrow-minded things that just kept me trapped. Things that we think are our ideas or our beliefs, they're just traps for ourselves. It doesn't allow us to connect with all the beauty in the world, and to see things as they are, as a gift. And yeah, so um that's one thing that I would like, especially for men, because we
Mm.
suffer through that so much, through that narrow-mindedness and that inability to be open to what's actually here. It causes so much damage, not only in the way that we go about acting, in the way that we collectively create damage in the environment, and then war and all of this kind of stuff, but on an individual level, on the level of families breakdowns because men aren't connected to themselves, and that follows through into their children. It has a flow-on effect throughout everything. And so yeah, that's if I could impart, if I could give that to everybody, just to be more open-minded and more curious about life instead of so certain, then
Yeah.
that would be good.
Is there an aspect of that spiritual practice, that meditation practice, that kind of shifted your perspective in that way, opened your mind? Like, was it connecting to that loving experience and realizing that that's in all of us? Was it something like that, Dan, do you think?
I think the main thing was that I had a couple of experiences. My marriage broke down, and I'd never questioned that it could. And so what I experienced was my my belief structure, or my identity structure, which I'd wrapped around the marriage and my relationship. And then it became a part of who I thought I was. And when I saw that break and completely get smashed, it was like, well, if that can break, then all of it can break. And so what's real? And that really made me question, okay, if this is all just, even like what's happening now with the corona, if the economy's breakable, and our jobs and businesses can just go like that, then what is important? What's real? And yeah, that having that happen to me, was a blessing, because it showed me how non-real these things are. Even though we can experience a family, and
Mm.
get married and have a relationship, and we should do that. Um, we shouldn't base our identity in those things, because if they go away or break, then we feel like we're broken, or we're not able to survive. And
Yeah.
so connecting every day to what I actually am, through meditation, like, is restabilizing my identity in what's actually, this unbounded kind of non-changing self that we all are at our deepest essence, right?
Yeah. And
And
it's in that breaking up of your ego, and my inner voice actually said to me once, this didn't come from my head, this came from somewhere else. It said, it's always good to smash up an ego. It said that to me not that long ago, going through a challenging experience myself. And it's like in those moments where we break apart, and those labels we attach to that identity falls to the wayside, it's like, it sucks. Like,
yeah, it sucks.
it's not fun,
No.
but we get an opportunity there to choose how we rebuild. And you could have gone two ways down. You could have spiraled down into, like, if this means nothing, then nothing means nothing, and I'm just going to give up. Or
Yeah.
it seems, opened yourself up to a more loving path, and the opportunity there to rebuild and see what you could make of this life beyond that ego identity.
Yeah, exactly. And I did feel that at the time, I had the opportunity to go down the drug path, to go the alcohol path, to try to drown my sorrows, and I really watched myself stay on the path and just stick with being with the pain and going through that process. And it reveals to you that part of yourself that can withstand all the change, that moves through. And it's like, the fire comes and burns away what's not you, and reveals to you another layer of you. And then, we go through these fires repeatedly in our life. I guess that's the other. Yeah, I was gonna refer back to the other podcast. But yeah, we go through these transformations constantly in our life, and meditation, having that practice and that sense of self being built, layered up over time, has helped me so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And through these experiences, have you had anxiety pop up for you? Has there ever been times where it's been really an intense sort of episode for you?
Yeah, actually, when I first started meditating, because I was so numb to my body, and I, had all the drinking and smoking and all these things that numb the body out and disconnect you from what you're really feeling. So when I stopped drinking it so much, and I cut back smoking, then I really started to process and digest some of these old experiences that I'd pushed down. And so I really started to experience that anxiety heighten, and just um, come, and then have to be uh, I'd learned a technique of just accepting it and allowing it to be there, but not allowing it to dictate how I behave. And so I could feel horrible for 3 days while this anxiety was being processed, but still go to work and get things done. And so, yeah, anxiety. Um, I wouldn't have said it was a part of my life before meditation, ironically, but what it did was it showed me where there was pain that needed to be processed, and that's how I experienced it.
So it's almost like you weren't aware of or feeling much anxiety beforehand, because you were so, it's like that next level of numbness. Not to say, like, you were just some floating soulless ghost, but
Yeah.
that when we're disconnected from our feelings that much, you may have had some anxiety, but you just never really associated with it or noticed it, do you think?
Yeah, exactly. And it would manifest more as avoidance of things
Mm.
rather than feeling the anxiety. So I'd have social anxiety, so I wouldn't go to certain places, or do certain things with certain people, because I couldn't either be there, or I'd have to be drunk to do it. And so rather than feeling the anxiety itself, I wouldn't necessarily say I was anxious, because I'd be too drunk to notice if I was anxious or not, you know? And so, well, I guess what happened when I first started to meditate was that I started addressing the underlying condition of my body. And like we were saying before, not judging what your body's going through as being wrong, and just accepting that you're processing something and allowing it to be there and leave and go through, and and the body has so much to do, and I've been mistreating it for so long, and it has a lot of stuff to process, a backlog of stress to process. So
Yeah.
I guess I experienced it a lot then at the start.
That allowing technique is, I think, very fear inducing for a lot of people. I think just sitting with your feelings, sitting with what you're feeling in your body, because we are so used to pushing it away and we don't like sitting with the discomfort and the pain. But it really is the only way. I teach people a kind of mini version of that to kind of ease into it. And yeah, it takes that next level of, some people need to have a few goes at it because it's so scary to let the anxiety be there and not be constantly fighting it.
Yeah,
But of
it
course,
can be
what
very
happens?
draining.
What's that?
It's very draining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have this idea that anxiety is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and take us over and go into a full-blown panic attack and we'll die, and that's an understandable fear. But the beauty is, and this is what I love, is that when we allow it there and we say, hey, it's okay, it loses its power. It loses all its momentum.
And that's another way, another perspective of it, is instead of seeing it as this thing that's outside of me that's trying to hurt me, it's just a part of me that I haven't accepted yet. And so we can, look at it through compassionate lens and be like, oh, that's me that I haven't loved enough. So, if I push away from it, that I'm creating more non-self, I'm creating more other within me, and I need to just kind of love it back into wholeness again. And
Yeah.
like I said, it's easy to say when I'm not in the middle of that process and we're sitting here having a nice conversation. But yeah, it definitely can
We're
feel.
just like, oh yeah, just sitting with your pain and like
Yeah.
smashing up your ego and having your whole identity, your whole world thrown up. Like it's just like, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't look the way it sounds. It's a lot more
no.
like, ah! But yeah.
Yeah. And but this is, I don't know about you, Dan, but this is what I'm here for in life. I'm here to live it up. I'm here to experience the ups and the downs and the growth that comes out of that. And as you said, with the way that you approach your meditation practice, that constant unfolding. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? There's got to be more here.
Yeah. And I guess from my perspective of, doing meditation for as long as I have, and kind of seeing the constant evolution of it, that where we have an underlying state, which is bliss. And, it's kind of like a seesaw of falling off the bliss track and then coming back to it and doing things that self-sabotage and move away from where I want to be, and then coming back to it. And so, it's a constant process of discovery. But when I, get things right and get the diet right, and move through the stresses and keep the meditation practice going solid, and then just to feel, instead of having that anxiety in the body, that the body's actually permeating with happiness chemistry, and that it's accessible for absolutely everybody. And it's our baseline state. Our normal healthy baseline state is to be in bliss. And so we're not really taught that from a health perspective, right?
No, and that's something that I wish more people knew, is that, because there's so many people go into their thinking that their default is sadness, their default is stress, anxiety. That's just what I default back to. It's like, actually, no, like your default state, like who you are at your core, is that bliss state. If we peel back the reasons why you think you're not good enough and all that conditioning you've received and things people told you about who you are, underneath that, you're that little kid chasing a butterfly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we all have that within us. Yeah. So through this journey, did you do it all on your own?
No, not at all.
So you've had support along the way?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I learned off the One Giant Mind app to meditate, and that was a little bit rocky because I didn't have any guidance around how long you should meditate or what the practice does, because it does unpack stress and fatigue from the nervous system. And if you do it too much, like I was doing 5 times in one day, it can cause quite a lot of stuff to come up. And I didn't have necessarily support around me to help guide me through that experience. So one of the main things that really changed my experience in being able to embody this stuff was to learn to meditate with a teacher. And I've had, a whole bunch of amazing teachers through my journey. Johnny Pollard, my cousin, who taught me to meditate in 2015. Laura Poole, who's in Melbourne. I'd consider even like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who I've never met. He's not even alive anymore, but he's one of my teachers. Tom Knowles, who's a Vedic master. And support of community, which is so valuable as you grow and change. Like, I wouldn't say that I necessarily have any of the same friends that I had when I was growing up now, because I've gone through such a transition and we don't have a lot in common, but that's fine. I've met so many beautiful people, and I think there's a little bit of a fear around this kind of stuff as well. If I'm going to change, then I'm not going to be relevant to my existing paradigm. But we have to let go of the idea of what we think life's supposed to be and embrace the unknown and, step into it. And the more you do that, the more support I've had. I definitely haven't done this alone at all. And there's been support every step of the way, whether it be from a specific person or just the powers that be.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so interesting that you bring up the rotation of friendships thing and those people, allowing them to fall away from your life, because that's something that I'm still in the process of. And it is so if there's such a pull of us, I said this in our other podcast episode, to belong and be connected in that. And it's linked to our safety. And yet, I know there's certain friendships that I have to revert back to past version of Georgie to have enough in common with some of these people. And yeah, it's interesting you say you're not friends with any of those people you grew up with, or in touch with them. I'm sure you could still reach out and say hi.
Yeah, for sure. We might say hi once or twice a year, but it's not like the constant, hanging out with each other that used to go on.
Yeah. And not your core group of support network these days.
Yeah, but I've met so many, people that are in this kind of world and continue to do so, like it's amazing.
Yeah. And I guess that comes from as well, like a scarcity belief of, well, I can't lose those friends because I won't find more. It's like there's so many amazing people out there, and I really do believe when you let go of some who aren't serving you, or who are just not as people you just don't feel great around anymore. If you let that go, you open up space for more amazing people to come into your life.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, like you said, reverting back to old ways is a very, challenging one, especially around family, because they're the ones that have the strongest vision of what you are. So, I've broken my family's expectation of me so many times over the last 5 years, but, they're very loving and supportive, luckily, and relearning who I am. But, it's the kind of thing I'm going through a process of discovering myself, and so I can't be held to your standard, because I've got to, I'm open to what I am. So it's important to let go of the rigid idea of who we are. And even though we humans are sentimental, one of the things, if you go into nature's not sentimental at all. Nature's constantly letting go, growing, throwing away, making new. It's not holding on to anything that's not relevant. So be like nature, I guess.
That's awesome. And also, like, I read this thing the other day by Glennon Doyle. It's a quote from her book Untamed, and I haven't read the book yet, but it's on my list. And it was something along the lines of, your one duty in your life is to honor what you need in that moment, even if that means disappointing other people. So disappoint as many other people as you can, so that you don't disappoint yourself. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's scary to do that.
Yeah, it is. And it's a fine line between disappointing someone because you're following your intuition and trying to rebel against someone as well. And I
Yeah.
think, as a teenager, we can be like rebelling to try to establish our own identity.
Mm.
And in when we evolve more and we get older, then we're disappointing people that have expectations of us that isn't doing something that isn't serving us. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, but it's so powerful, like you said.
Yeah. And I think, I think it's very challenging for, say, family members as someone, they watch a family member like you or I go through a development and a shift in who we are. It's
Hmm.
challenging because we all want to just kind of categorize everyone and just be like, everything's the same and I know exactly who you are and I can predict you. And I think when someone close to you does shift, that is very challenging to accept, because it's like, oh, hold on, like this needs to be stable. Like family should be everyone should be the same the whole way
Yeah.
through. So
Yeah.
like,
And I've had that a few times. Just have a beer and go back to how you used to be. It's like, all right.
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but that's part of it as well. And people having rigid ideas about who they are and having rigid ideas about who you are in relationship to them. And so I think it's good to break the mold a few times, and then they start to question, if that can change, what else can change.
mm. And I think all we can do at the end of the day is honor ourselves, follow our own intuition, our own path, whatever feels right to you. And if that means, like, if you'd sat down and had that beer, you'd be disappointing yourself. And if
Hmm.
you say no to that beer, you're disappointing them.
Yeah.
But what's worse, and I think
Mm.
when we don't honor ourselves, like, we've got nothing else to give to other
Mm.
people. We can't show up as our best self. And like we were saying before, when nature unfurls and does its thing, like, we've got to just let ourselves bloom
Hmm.
in our most natural
Absolutely.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, so true. What else did I want to ask? I had a really good thought before and I've lost it.
Mm.
And I was gonna throw it in there. That's okay. I'll edit this
Mm.
out.
Yeah.
Well, Dan,
Yes.
I've got 2 more questions for you.
Yes.
And these are, I can see you getting ready.
Yes. I could run away at any moment.
So those questions are, firstly, when you feel anxiety pop up for you and you're feeling that uncomfortable feeling, what is something that you can say to yourself in that moment, or what's something that you do in that moment to move through the anxiety?
Mm. What I like to do, if generally if the anxiety is taking control of the mind and running away with a thought story, and it's getting carried away, I like to ask myself what this looks like 2 years from now. If I'm getting anxious about a particular outcome of an event, or something that I'm working on, being successful, then I like to look back in the moment, look back and say, am I going to be worried about this in 2 years? And usually I'm like, no. And so I take a breath and let go. But I guess my technique is connecting to being, is just to drop into that part of myself that I feel doesn't change. And it's an abstract kind of thing to say out loud, I guess, but it's just a sense of that I'm here, and going back through the process of change is always happening, and I'm going to be all right. Things are going to unfold and I'm going to be all right. But yeah, and
Yeah.
just allowing it to come up and to be felt. Because I think, going back to what we were saying before, feeling it is so important, even when we'd rather resist it. So yeah.
That's
Mm.
excellent. I ask that question to everyone, and everyone's got such different answers. I
Mm.
just love how we get to bring all these different ideas about moving through that feeling of anxiety. And I guess that sense of that, what I like to call your unshakable composure, or that sense of calm within you, no matter what's going on the outside. Um,
Mm.
Do you think you can reach that without something like meditation?
Um, no.
Yeah, I think
Like
I agree.
I believe you need a practice like of some sort to 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 get to that. I don't know. Like even if you're dancing or doing something, you know, yeah, it's I I'm not sure. I can't answer that definitively, but I don't think I could get there without it. So that's how I'll answer that question.
Yeah, and I think my thoughts on it is that to understand the concept of there is a place within you that's calm despite whatever else is going
Hmm.
on the surface, even if that includes your own sadness or your own anxiety in that moment. Beneath that, there is calm. I
Hmm.
don't know if you can. You have to experience it to understand it. As you said, it's an
Yeah,
abstract kind of
it's
concept.
it's not another story that I'm telling myself, you know. So
Mm,
I'm not feeling this anxiety and there's a story going on and I'm just telling myself another story on top. It's like you said, it's the experience of I've been connected to this place hundreds of times in my meditation, and now there's something that seems to be, you know, a storm on the surface of the ocean. I can drop into that place where it's calm and at least witness the storm, and you know allow it to play out rather
mm,
than try to either go into it or stop it. You can just sit back and be in that part of yourself, like you said, that you've experienced before. And so the experience is so important, and developing through constant practice that that the that place becomes more and more and more and more um, expressive the more you do it. So it's one of those things that you can't do it too much, you know.
yeah, totally. And
Mm.
it's that place, that calm within the storm, that is the control that we're all
Hmm.
seeking when with anxiety. We're all trying to do. We're going about it the wrong way. We're trying to like plan, and we're trying to think of the future and all these other things. But at the end of the day, going into that present moment, watching your own stories, watching it all play out
Hmm.
from that observer perspective, that's the control that we're all trying to find.
Hmm. Yeah. And there's kind of we have the control that we can let go as well. And uh, you know, because what we find is even if we are able to control everything in our life, it doesn't deliver us the experience that we're really desiring. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even if we did succeed in controlling all the people's opinions and all of the outcomes, we're still not going to get at the point where the world is stopped changing, and that's what we're trying to achieve with control. So we have to come back to the point of part of ourself that doesn't change, be there and allow change to happen, and move with it instead of trying to control how it changes.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's so important.
excellent. Now, Dan, for anyone who wants to learn more about you, where they can learn to meditate with you,
Hmm.
where can we find you?
Learn to meditate is on my website, danieltuckermeditation.com, and more podcasts are on Spiritual Tradie podcast.
Excellent. Well, I'll have all the links in the show notes for everyone. Dan, thank you so much. It's been
Thank you.
awesome chatting to you.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Brilliant. Well, I will